Welcome to the Ripcord Moment. I'm your host, Joe C2. Today we're joined by Scott Snyder. Scott is the president and co-owner of the Exit Planning Institute. He's responsible for strategic direction, overseeing the company operations, and chapter development. I've known Scott for a number of years. He's a lifelong entrepreneur. In fact, he started his first business at the ripe old age of 17 and actually had sold it by the age of 24, believe it or not. Scott, welcome to the podcast. You partnered with your father to acquire EPI, the Exit Planning Institute, where you and Chris, your father, have created this formal training program called the CEPA, the Certified Exit Planning Advisor designation. It's something I've actually gone through, and really bringing this sort of formal methodology to the space of business and succession planning. So excited to have you today. Looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Really excited to see this be on the show.
So, we just had the national summit where we had, I think, 600 CEPAs. You talked a lot in one of your keynote speeches around personal purpose at the summit. How has finding your purpose really impacted your business and how you think about succession planning?
What a great opening question. So, this is obviously something top of mind. And if you saw me kind of speak at the summit, I kind of got a little vulnerable, right? Kind of sharing a little bit of my entrepreneurial journey, particularly over the last couple of years. And I think that I made a pretty bold statement, certainly in front of my dad too, who created this methodology. I said, look, I think that one of the things for owners to really get activated inside of the value acceleration methodology, a big part of that, and maybe even I went as far to say, I think one of the missing components is that owners need to find purpose. It's something crazy. Like when I started doing research for that very speech, something like 70 to 80% of Americans walk around with no sense of purpose or meaning in life. And I think that it's a critical piece to the overall methodology. So as you know, we believe in having three things aligned, right? Business goals, personal goals, and personal financial goals. And really, to me, if you don't really understand personal purpose and vision and your core values, it's actually kind of hard to get all three aligned. Because I think that as a business owner, we're operating in all three of those elements as well. And I think it helps us drive the way in which we run our companies as well on a day-to-day basis. So I think it has like short-term impact, and I think it has impact on long-term value, both on a personal side and on a business side as well.
Yeah, I love this concept. I mean, thought leader Simon Sinek has really gotten out there and talked about, finding your why. I'll tell you, for us as an organization, one of the things we did during the pandemic was worked on our personal whys, and at our company annual holiday party, we actually shared them, and it was really compelling to hear each of our whys. And I love the fact that you're bringing this in, really into the fold as well. I think your company, if I think I saw correctly, released their purpose and mentions talking about helping to work with creating companies of significance rather than just success. So talk to us a little bit about why that is mission critical for EPI.
Yeah, I think just kind of leading in from finding purpose, right? Once I found my personal purpose, it's actually impacted our entire business. We did the same exercise at the end of, I guess it was same kind of time frame in the heat of the pandemic. We kind of came together that fall of 2020, all 20 of us at EPI working on our personal purpose. And it was shocking, actually. Not only did I not have a clear personal purpose, but there was, I think, maybe one or two people at EPI that actually had one. But once we did that, and I think it's I'll mention that story because it led into, okay, now that we have all these personal purposes and vision, what kind of company do we want to be? So it led us to actually look at the personal or the company purpose and really who EPI was, both internally and then externally to all of our CEPAs and really all of the community. And we said, look, if you know of EPI, if you've understood maybe the past 10 years since Dad and I bought EPI, the purpose of EPI has been a lot of calling change the outcome. Yeah. And to me, what does that really mean, right? What outcome are we actually trying to change? So it makes you peel the layer back. And what I think it really boils down to is that at the end of the day, a lot of business owners have very successful companies, right? If you just talk to them about it, most of them would feel pretty successful in their entrepreneurial journey, right? They seemingly have great customers, great employees. They have good cash flow. They have a nice P&L, maybe even a solid balance sheet. But then when they go to sell their company, what they find is that they either got to take a haircut, so they're not getting what they want for their company, or it's going to take much longer to sell their company because I have to build some value, or unfortunately, sometimes not even sellable or saleable at all.
Right.
And they're kind of slapped in the face. And they're like, what do you mean, Joe? Like, I have a really great company. Nobody wants this thing. It's that they only focused on likely income generation and not value creation. They only focused on being successful year over year and hitting a growth plan. And they didn't think in terms of, okay, how does that eventually affect the strategic value of my company? And then how does it relate to me personally and what I do in the next act of my life? And so, yeah, we looked at our company and we said, look, honestly, for EPI, our purpose is to drive more significant companies. And we chose to do that through educating folks like all of you and bringing you guys together in a community that are all like-minded advisors. Because as a business owner myself, it's kind of like this rising tides raises all, or it's kind of like that saying about it takes a community to raise the kid, right?
Sure.
And I think that business owners, myself included, need guys like you, because we certainly don't know it all. We know our craft. For me, it's professional education, content, and events. But all these other components that go into exit strategy are so complex, honestly, that it takes a team of experts. So we really looked last year and really 2 years ago, changing our purpose. We've been trying to live it 2021 and into this year.
Well, maybe we could actually pivot the conversation there to like, we know the technical proficiencies, right? For like, you know, if you need to get your books cleaned up, you either get a CFO for hired, or maybe you're leveraging your CPA. When you tackle the estate planning component, we know there's somebody that wears that hat. A financial planner, right? We know how to model out creating a financial roadmap for a client. When you bring in the investment banker, all those. But who would you look to, or maybe who did you look to as your coach, as the facilitator, as that expert who helped you craft your why? Because it's such it's a vulnerable thing, and it's something that it's a bit unique.
It is. So there was a couple things. So what I knew at the time, so I didn't really know that I didn't really know my personal purpose, right? I feel like I feel like, Joe, I was like in tune and everything, but I didn't. We preach at EPI writing stuff down, written strategies. But I can tell you that I didn't really have a written set of core values or a written vision. And although we had a really nice pivot during the summit, our company had a really nice pivot, I kind of stepped back and I looked, and you could just tell, right? Being the leader of a company, you could just tell something was kind of off. And so I fell into this transformational leadership training through a group called Initiative One Leadership Institute, and a gentleman named Fred Johnson, who you met at the summit.
Yep.
And his program was to help teams come together, have a better communication system, and to make quicker and more informed decisions across the entire company. And I said, as a business owner, like, yeah, that sounds like exactly what we need. When I got into the program, instead, before we could tackle anything like that, we had to step back and look at who we were. So he said, look, I could give you all the systems, all the process, I can give you all the training, but we have to understand who you are first in order to be a better business leader. And so that's how I fell into finding my personal purpose. And I went to the extent that I'm a pretty extroverted dude. Like sitting around by myself, I start to go crazy a little bit. I love human interaction. And so for the first time in my life, during that time period, this would have been 2020, 2021, I went away on a personal reflection trip. I literally got a cabin here in the woods in Ohio.
Mini sabbatical type of thing.
Yeah, just by myself, legitimately turned off the computer and just started to write. Okay. I hiked around. I took a backpack for the day and hiked around to different cool locations in the park. Was that overlooked the lake at one point, and just had a nice quiet time. I just started jotting down what I wanted to do in life and kind of trying to, again, kind of connect the dots, right? I'm a big bucket list guy too, but like, what kind of meaning did that have in my life? And what I found is that whether it was in the business, in my personal life, as a family man, as a friend, as a mentor, my life has been all about driving experiences for people and helping them get to their experiences and bringing experiences into my own life. So I found that, I exist to really be a catalyst for experiences for people, which was shocking to me because we're in a business that drives transformational experiences for professional advisors and owners. Yeah. And so I found that, going back to your original question, I found that simply by getting myself into a professional program that allowed us to kind of spend time on that on a regular basis.
But I'm going to pause real quick there. Yeah. This is not something, I'm guessing you may not have gotten to the same conclusion had you just done it on your own. Like you actually got a coach to help
training. I think it's just like exit planning, Joe, or it's like financial planning or anything else. It's like, again, as a business owner, I think one of the things that we could do as business owners is realizing that we should relinquish some control and that we don't know everything about everything.
Yeah.
Like, again, I know a ton. I could tell you about professional education.
Yep.
I could tell you how to put on a great event, and I could tell you how to create really good, inspiring content. But I couldn't tell you how to find my personal purpose. And I think that once you kind of relinquish that control a little bit, and again, get a little vulnerable and say, man,
Sure.
like, I really don't know about this, but there's people out there that do. So let's invest some time, money, resources, and make it happen. So the pandemic, as bad as the pandemic has been for many people, there is some kind of silver lining in it that I think it made a lot of people think a lot differently in life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about personal purpose, and it was just seeing my people on my team and in the office just acting a little differently that made me say, look, I think there's something missing here that we need. And so, it was a formal program that we were able to go through that really gave me structure, just like the value acceleration methodology gives structure in exit planning.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you from my experience in having done the CEPA in 2018 and working with a number of owners, I became an owner myself of Morton in 2014,
right.
As a second generation owner. When I'm having the conversations with people, that the business aspect and the technical stuff around the personal financial planning is relatively well fleshed out. There's a lot of material out there where I think, and I would agree with you, and what I took away from the summit was the personal aspect for the owner is one where I think our methodology could improve collectively across
100%.
the board and needs to incorporate more professional training coaches like a Fred or whoever else or Simon Sinek type to help those discussions and to help that along for the owner as well. So I'm excited to see where this kind of goes over the next few years.
So am I. It's maybe me and my dad were laughing after the summit too, because I think it could be one of my contributions to the overall methodology, right?
Totally.
Along the way is that I do. If you looked at the training program, if you looked at the book, and Dad's down in Florida right now writing a second version of Walking to Destiny, which includes some of the stuff that we're talking about today. Because again, I think that particularly for the baby boomer generation, right? These folks that are in their 60s and early 70s, you spend a lifetime really being a business owner, and you spend almost a lifetime certainly with hobbies and stuff, but very disconnected. Remember, 70 to 80% of Americans cited that they don't have a clear sense of purpose or meaning in life.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the problems, right? Is that we spend a lot of time on personal financial planning. We spend a lot of time on business growth, but we never spend any time like on ourselves and saying like, well, what is the meaning and why am I here? And I think once you unlock that, it gives you different goals and objectives in life. And it gives you different goals and objectives in your business. And it kind of makes all these three things kind of come together. So I do believe that it could be the missing piece to really unlocking more of a value acceleration centric lifestyle that helps you get to this significant company. I think it'll be an interesting next few years to see how it all comes together.
Why do you think most owners don't have a detailed plan around this personal aspect of their life as part of their exit plan?
Yeah, I think a little bit of it's generational. So Joe, you know me well. I love talking about generations. So I do. I think it's a little bit generational, but I also think for anybody across any generation as a business owner, I think that your business owner's like another child for you. It's your baby. I think that business owners love running their company. Like I was away for a week in Disney World with my family last week.
And you were jonesing to get back.
Right. Well, honestly, as much as I enjoyed that, it was the first time in a long time that I truly kind of shut it down so I could be with the family and be present. But I could tell you we were there for 7 days. By day 5, I was actually like missing my people. I was missing hanging out with guys like you, Joe. And I was missing, like, if you looked at my desk right now, I have the Colorado State of Owner Readiness Survey, the data all sprawled out on my desk as I author the report right now. And there is a massive lack of planning inside of this Colorado state of owner readiness, inside of that personal side as well. So I just think that owners don't concentrate on it because, again, I think most owners would consider themselves pretty successful. They have nice things. They have a good business. They do probably cool stuff, take good vacations, might drive a nice car, second home, a boat, an RV. They have cool stuff. And it's kind of like what I said at the summit. It's like, unbeknownst to you, it feels really good, right? Your life seems good, but you're operating in kind of a disjointed way. And you don't really know it until you actually find purpose. And it just, for at least for me, Joe, it provided so much clarity and just like a moment where you're like, man, if I let this purpose and these values kind of guide me a little bit, like saying no to more is easier and saying yes to the right things is easier. And you don't feel bad. You're just like, I'm going to say no to that because it just doesn't fit in this.
Doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit for me. But I think that most people are like almost blinded or like cloaked by a relatively successful life and company. They don't feel that they need it until they lose their company because they sold it, and they go, well, who am I? I've identified for 20 years as an entrepreneur, as like this company that hangs behind me. That's what I found back then. My landscaping company was my first company. I ran that for almost 10 years. And when I sold that, I felt accomplished as a 24-year-old guy. But then I spent like the next 6 months like, well, who the hell am I? Because I went to horticulture school. I loved getting out there with the guys. And I was busy year-round plowing snow in the wintertime here in Cleveland. And then it was all gone one day. And you're like, shit, I let my business define who I was. Who am I without this?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think I'm hearing two things from you, Scott. One is it's like your perception of reality shifts when those things that you define as real out there are no longer there. And they were real, but now the circumstances around them have changed. That asset is owned by somebody else, or it's, and the business itself has been sort of the level which people put their identity on, and that is their purpose. And it sounds like you have been able to go to a deeper level within yourself to craft a purpose that, while EPI is I guess in alignment with it, you would, if EPI didn't exist hypothetically, you could take your purpose and apply it to something else and 100%. Still find fulfillment.
100%. And I do, right? So like I'm certainly a business owner, but I'm an avid soccer player, still play very competitively now, and I coach.
Right. I didn't know that.
I'm an avid soccer. I mean, I'm the old man of the group now, Joe. So like Thursday,
at 30 or 35?
I'm 36 going on 37, but I'll tell you, man, we play pretty competitively. So I got these like young bucks coming out of college that like don't go pro or anything, but they want to play in a highly competitive league. So I get pretty beat up. But I play indoor. I play arena soccer. So it's like it's you guys down in your Southern California, you got like the San Diego Soccers. That's your big major arena soccer league. So, but anyway, but I could apply it to there. I just think that you're right. What I shared with people at the summit is like, I'm an ordained minister as well. So like I shared in that aspect of my life. Yeah. And so, if EPI didn't exist tomorrow when I woke up, I have a more purposeful life in many aspects of who I am as a person. And I think that, again, it's just online. And I'm glad I got maybe blessed to find it at 36 years old, right? Because I think many owners don't find it until after they sell their company. But I also sold a company fairly young at 24, which made me start to think a little bit differently. And honestly, I know the audience that's listening is going to say, Scott, you're probably biased, but I really want to, for the owners, particularly listening, surrounding yourself with really good advisors like Joe really help you to think differently. And that's why it's so critical. When I'm sitting here reviewing this data, Joe, there is 78% of owners don't have a board of advisors. 63% of owners have not suck out any advice about exit or transition planning. And something like 44% have no formal advisory team really at all. They have an attorney and a CPA that they meet with on like a quarterly basis. They meet there with their attorney when they need something of a legal matter. And so the other thing that I have the bias towards, or I have the early blessing with, is that my dad created the value acceleration methodology. So I've been running a business like this since I was a kid, but I can tell you I know it's going to come off as bias, but I would love to drive home to owners that surrounding yourself with a really good outside advisory team. It makes the difference because they push you to do things just like Fred Johnson.
They cause you to, I think there's a level of accountability. I think it helps too with a couple clients I've been working with where we do that on a regular basis. I saw the best quote. I was going to forward it to you maybe a couple weeks ago. And it said, "Are you a business owner or a firefighter?"
Yeah.
And it's right because the owners who don't operate with some sort of strategic framework like the value acceleration methodology, if they're doing it on a day-to-day basis, all they're doing is putting out today's firefights and playing in this field. We want to try and get owners thinking up at a strategic level so they can start to plan ahead, anticipate, be proactive, drive value into the company. So I agree with you 100%.
100%.
And that's where a formal structure or formal board of advisors can certainly help facilitate that and take the company and the owner to the next level.
And it does. I think that they provide great advice and stuff that you're just not thinking. It almost, to your point, allows you as an owner to kind of step outside of the business, be a little bit more visionary and strategic, and ping things off people that you might think are more peers.
Yeah.
And so I think that one of the other things, when you kind of asked me, like, how did you were able to find that? Certainly it was a formal program, but it was also the use of really good advisors that said, Scott, I think there's something missing for you. And if you try this training and you kind of, and I'm not a big, like clouds in the sky kind of guy. So it was very hard.
No, you're not. Yeah.
It was very hard for me to be vulnerable and say, okay, let me really start to peel the layer of the onion back, ask why a lot, and keep trying to find it. And I'm telling you, people are just going to have to believe me that when you found it and it was written, and then a new sense of core values came out of it, it's like you could see it. I've never been more passionate about my business and just generally about life. It just changes who you are, for sure.
I mean, as an outsider, right? And we see each other a couple times a year, whether it's on Zoom or in person at these summits. And I will tell you, your presence on stage, your message was hands down substantially different this time around than in years past. Not in years past, they were great, but this time it resonated just on a deeper level. Yeah,
it was. And I would say that it was, and I think that's a good observation, because it was also almost like less rehearsed. It was literally like, it just came out, and I was like, hey guys, I want to share this with you. Sure. And here it is. And it was. I appreciate you saying that, because it was certainly a different summit for us this year.
Good. Well, Scott, I call this the Ripcord moment, because I'm a firm believer that when owners go to exit their businesses, most of them only get one shot. You may be in that rare company, and that plan, that parachute can't fail. That Ripcord's got to work, which is why we got to have the advisors, why they've got to use the value acceleration methodology. And so I always ask our guests for 2 pearls of wisdom, 2 action items that owners should think about sooner rather than later that they do if they're contemplating a succession event. So what would be your closing words of wisdom to our guests?
So I have 2, one on the business side, one on the personal side. So the personal side is going to be what we just talked about. Find your purpose, write it down, and begin to live by it immediately. It'll change all aspects of your life, business, personal, and financial. My last thing for business owners, I would say you should begin to understand the value of your business, not just know it. And if you don't know it, you definitely need to know it. And then you need to begin to understand it. And for me, that every owner, whether you're approaching the harvest of value and the exit, or you're maybe younger, like me, where you still have a long runway before you want to exit, knowing the value of your business will create a more successful company today and a more significant one when the time comes of exit. So know your value, understand and know the value of your business by conducting an annual kind of discovery event, which is like a diagnostic of your entire company. It will change the way you operate, for sure.
Yeah, the great pearls of wisdom, Scott. Go ahead and wrap it up today. Thank you again for your time, and we'll go ahead and sign off. This is Joe C2 from the Ripcord Moment, and we'll catch you next time.